As we begin, pray first this morning. This is our first day. Again, we're going to go through the 29th, next 21 days. This is the third year in a row we began our year with this, and there's reason for that. We're trying to say, hey, God, you are a priority in our life. You're number one in our life, and we want to get our direction from you. We want to hear from you about our upcoming year. We want to know your vision and direction for our lives. And so really, that's what we're doing with Pray First. So as we begin this year with Pray First, I want to ask you a question. It's a little bit of a personal question. I'm sure it's going to be different for everyone in the room, but how did you start off the new year? I mean, we're 8 days in now. Did some of you come into 2023 limping from the pain of 2022? Maybe you got knocked down a little bit. Maybe some new body, aches and pains that you've never felt before because you're another year older. Whatever it might be. Maybe you came into 2023 like, let's do this. I'm ready. Let's go. Whatever God has for me, whatever comes my way, I'm going to knock it out and let's do this 2023. Or maybe some of you are just like, 2023, what happened to 2018? You're just like, where's the time going? I mean, it just comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden it's a new year. Whatever it is, there's a familiar saying that many of you have heard, and that is this: it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that's a pretty good statement. I mean, it's always important to finish well, but I believe a successful finish has a lot to do with how you start. And that's why we start with Pray First. And it is not too late. Just because it's January 8th does not mean it's too late. Let's start 2023 right with Pray First. Courtney and I have been members of a little throat thing going on here, but members of a lake resort in Owensville, Missouri. It's called Lost Valley. And we've been taking our kids there ever since they were little. And she's been going since she was little because her grandparents used to own the membership before us. And so we've been going there and camping for years. We love to go camping. It's not real like out in the woods in a tent kind of camping. It's trailers. I mean, some of you call it glamping. I don't know. Some of you would laugh at us when you see everything that we take on this camping trip. With our AC and, all the fun things we have to do on this trip. But every year when we're getting ready for that, the week building up to leaving for our camping trip, we even did it this summer. And we start putting all of the stuff we're gonna need in totes and getting our sleeping bags and pillows and all that stuff, and we pile it all in the dining room. And every year I look at the pile and I look at our car and I'm like, there's no way we're getting all that in there. And Courtney reminds me every year you say that, and every year you get it all in. And I'm like, well, you're right. I mean, I am really good at packing. So, thank you for propping me up there, Courtney. But, every year I somehow find a way to get it all in. And so let me just show you a quick photo. This is one from about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm flexing. Look at that muscle. You didn't know you were getting tickets to the gun show today, but you did. So I'm saying, look at the back. I mean, you can't see a hint of daylight. There's not even air coming through there because I packed everything that she laid out. It's not pretty, but it's in there. And if you'll notice, I want to point something out here because as a professional, packing person, I want to show you what I was able to do. Years ago, we packed, and I would just, get it all in there the same way, but I would even put the heavy stuff right above the kids. And one time I had to hit the brakes and all that stuff started coming down on them, including my guitar and some other things. And so I've learned, notice there's pillows and soft things right behind them so that if anything falls, they're not even going to get hurt. That's professional packing. I'm pretty proud of it. Henceforth, the muscle that you see there. The reason I show you this is some of you, our life is like this van. Our life, we came into 2023 like this van. It's a little overstuffed, a little overloaded, maybe our rear end dragging a little bit. When you have that car loaded down and it looks like a lowrider, that's kind of how that van was. And some of us come into 2023 that way. And I want to encourage you to start the year with rest. Making rest a priority. And so that leads me to Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 30. And these are Jesus' words. He's talking to us. And I want you to hear what Jesus has to say to us. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, Another translation could say, come to me, all of you whose rear end is dragging a little bit from 2022. Overstuffed, overloaded, put too much on your plate. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you what? Rest. Rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me. That's Jesus talking. Learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. It's not just rest for your body. As good as that is, it's rest for your souls. And man, that sounds great. Come follow me, life will be easy, life will be light, and you will find live a life full of rest. And that sounds great. The problem is we don't always feel that way. The problem is we still feel a little overloaded, a little rear end dragging a little bit, a little overstuffed with too many things that we put on our plate. And Jesus is saying, I want to offer you a different way of life where you can have rest. How to live rested in an exhausting world. So let's look at another scripture. And what better place to start than Genesis chapter 1? Will you look at that with me? Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5. Genesis 1 through 5. In the beginning, might as well start in the beginning, right? It's a good place to start. God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that light was good, and he separated the light from darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Now you could continue reading, and you're gonna find the second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. He created, he saw that it was good, there was evening, and then there was morning. Now look at verse 27. Verse 27, this is day 6. Same thing is going on here. God's creating. He's gonna create mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. And God saw all that he had made, but it wasn't just good. Actually, it says it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning the 6th day. Now, I've mentioned this before, actually just a few weeks ago when we were reading in Genesis, and the account of the creation of the world is written in the form of a poem. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but if you read it, you can hear this rhythm of repetition of a poem, because repetition shows us what's important. Just think about how you eat. I mean, 3 meals a day. Repetition is important because if you eat the same things over and over and over, then your body is going to show that. Working out, repetition is important. How many reps you get is important because it's going to show how many reps you're doing. If you do 1 rep and you call it good, I'm telling you, not too many people are going to see that. But repetition is important. Actually, according to a study, the European Journal of Social Psychology said it takes 18 to 254 days, somewhere in between there, it takes that long to develop a new habit. They say the average is 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic, just something you do. 66 days is the average. And when you find something that you want to create a new habit in your life, you want to try something new, you need to try that longer than just once. You got to keep doing it over and over and over until it becomes a new habit. Repetition shows importance. And this repetition in Genesis 1, God created, he saw that it was good, there was evening, and there was morning. Now that sounds a little different to us. There was evening and there was morning. That's not how our day works. We wake up in the morning and we start our day. And our day starts with getting up, get ready, go to work hard all day, get the kids to all their sports after the day, mow the lawn, do whatever chores we have for the day. And finally, at the end of the day, there might be a little bit of time in the evening for some rest. So work comes first and then rest. Life comes first and then rest. And that is not what God is showing us. He says there's a different way of life. There's a different rhythm. He says there's evening and then there's morning. He's introducing an alternative rhythm to our lives. And I would encourage you, think about trying this. A rhythm that doesn't start with work, but a rhythm that starts with rest. Chad, you can call it morning, evening, morning, doesn't matter. I don't have enough time in the day. That's just the truth. Those are the choices you're making. Everything we took on that van for our that we packed on that van for that trip, I tell her every year, there's no way we need all this stuff. There's gotta be something we're packing that we're not using. And how many times are we filling our lives with things that we really, truly don't need, but we're taking them along with us because we think they make us feel important. We think we gotta have this one thing because everybody else has this thing, so I better pack it into my life. And we find ourselves overstuffed and overloaded. Genesis 1 is written by Moses. Moses, who was born in Egypt in Pharaoh's household. Now, if you read the story, you can go back in the Old Testament, read it. He kills a man, he had to flee, but God called him back to Egypt to deliver the Israelites out of bondage. So the first people to hear Genesis 1, the first people to understand God and creation would have been those in the Israelites. They were enslaved in Egypt, or they were wandering around in the wilderness having just been delivered when they hear Genesis 1. What do you think their life looked like as slaves? They literally built the empire that enslaved them. The roads that they walked on, they built. The buildings that they lived in, they built. The monuments built to declare Pharaoh's greatness, they built. But you know what they did every day, all day? Their job was to make bricks, sun up to sundown, just making bricks. And if you were a slave, the only question in life that really mattered, when the Egyptian overseers would come to them, the one question they would ask is, how many bricks did you make today? That's all it came down to, is how many bricks did you make? And in Genesis 1, God has this message to his people, the Israelite people that he delivered from bondage. And his message was, I'm not Pharaoh, I'm different. Your life is not a life of slavery. It's going to be different because I have a different rhythm of life for you to live. Your value is not in what you do. Your value does not come from how many bricks you make. Your days will start with rest because your value comes from belonging to me. That was God's message to them, and that is God's message to you today. God told them, he told his people, I created you, I looked up on you, and before you had done anything, before you had made one brick, I said it was very good. It wasn't just good, it was very good. You were created in my image, and I have a different rhythm of life for my people. It doesn't start with work, it starts with rest. Because to rest is to trust that what God has done is enough. Let me say that again. To rest is to trust that what God has done is enough. Now let me ask you a question. I don't know about you, but I'm glad. Aren't you glad that your value is not found in how many bricks that you make in a day, right? I got nobody agreeing with me. I don't want to make any bricks. Anybody glad you don't have to make bricks? That's not where your value comes from. I'm so glad that we don't have to go to our phone and check our email 6 times a day to make sure the boss didn't give us another chore to make sure we got another brick made. I'm so glad I don't have to go to social media and see how many likes I got on something to feel important to make sure that I'm making more bricks than everybody else. I'm so glad that I don't find my value in the things that I cross off my to-do list to decide if today was a good day or a bad day, based on how many bricks I got made. I'm so glad the first question I ask people when I meet them is not, what do you do? Because that brings importance and value to our lives. It's very easy to get caught up in the idea that we find importance and value in how many bricks that we make. And that can be so exhausting, filling our lives with so much just to feel important. And the only problem is you're never going to make enough. There's not enough bricks out there. And here's the crazy thing. It's not Pharaoh trying to get you to make these bricks. We do this to ourselves. We put it on ourselves to think, I got to make more bricks tomorrow. I got to make more bricks so that I can put some back for 10 years from now. And we'll take that promotion that takes us away from our family because that's going to give us value and make us feel important, and we'll be able to make more bricks. We'll sign our kids up for that one-on-one basketball lesson 5 days a week because we see potential, even though they're only 4.5 years old, because we want them to be able to make more bricks. I want to be clear here. There's nothing wrong with promotions. There's nothing wrong with sports. And the problem comes when those things take priority and when we fill our lives with those things because we think they give us value and everybody's seeing us based on how many bricks we're making. And Jesus says, I have a better way of life than this. We're going to start our day with rest, because rest is to trust that what God has done is already enough. Thing is, we're trying so hard to win something that's already been freely given to us. We're trying to win the approval of all the people around us when we have the approval of our Heavenly Father already on us. We just have to recognize it. Which brings me to Matthew chapter 3. Great example of this. Matthew chapter 3, verses 16 and 17. Jesus is being baptized. I love the baptisms we do around here and how we get to celebrate with those who make that choice to be baptized and to proclaim their faith in Jesus Christ publicly. Jesus has decided that he is going to be baptized, and as soon as he's baptized, he comes up out of the water, and at that moment, heaven opened, and he saw a Spirit of God descending like a dove upon him. And a voice from heaven said this is my Son whom I love. With him, I'm well pleased. It's one of the 3 times in the Bible that God spoke, and the Father spoke audibly to the Son. And he was saying to his Son, you are my Son whom I love, and I am well pleased, I delight in you. Before Jesus had done anything, there had been no miracles, there had been no healings. He's just Jesus, and he decided to be baptized, but his Father is saying, I don't love you because I just love you. If you're a follower of Jesus today, the same is true for you. God loves you. Not he loves you because. Not because of how many bricks you make. He loves you. Which means this. It's on the bulletin for you. You can see it there. God's to-done list is so much more important than our to-do list. God's to-done list is so much more important than our to-do list. If you're a follower of Christ today, here's what God has done for you. Before you ever got up out of bed this morning, before you ever made a brick, God created you, he looked upon you, and before you had done anything, he said it was very good. He saved you by sending his Son to die for you so that you can walk in salvation and freedom. He healed you, he adopted you, he comforted you, he called you, he gifted you, he goes before you, he is with you everywhere you go. What he has done for you is so much more important than checking off your to-do list to say, I made another brick, look how important I am. And because of God's to-done list, we can put down our to-do list just for a moment and rest. We can say, you know what, that to-do list is important, but let me hold off. I need to rest in what God has done already. And then I'll get to that to-do list.